Hello, welcome to Just the Dis channel. My name's Brian. We talk about Blu-rays here, and I'm doing a little video here for Noirvember. Gonna recommend got a sizable stack of movies here that I'm going to recommend that you might be interested in. Maybe if you're looking for something to watch in the noir category. And I'm going to go relatively quickly through these. I have a big stack here, and I don't want to waste too much time, so let's just get right into this. Let's start with Too Late for Tears. This one came out from Flicker Alley, which is a label I haven't talked about on the channel yet, but a label I like very much. They do a lot of great work there, and this was done in conjunction with the Film Noir Foundation and UCLA Film and Television Archive. They did a couple of these. There's another one, Woman on the Run, which is also great. But I just rewatched this one last night, and this is a real gem. Okay. Basic plot is that you have Elizabeth Scott. She's, I think, married to Arthur Kennedy, who is actually one of my favorite underrated character actors. And they are driving, I think, home one night on a canyon road. This is I think an LA movie, and suddenly this car drives by, or this truck drives by and tosses a bag into the back of their car, and they're just like, what was that? And then suddenly they open the bag up, there's a bunch of money in it, then another car comes driving down the road behind them. Clearly there was a money exchange supposed to happen, and the person in the other car threw the money in the wrong car. So then you have a scenario where they are trying to work out, should they keep the money? Should they turn it into the cops? What can they do? And that is a tough decision. And Elizabeth Scott is definitely leaning towards the keeping the money side, and Arthur Kennedy's maybe not as hot on that idea. And then enter Dan Duryea, who is the guy whose money it is. And he finds out where they live, and he starts coming over to the house when Arthur Kennedy's away and telling Elizabeth Scott, like, where's my money? That's pretty much what he says almost constantly. Where's the money? He's like Maury in Goodfellas. Where's my money? And so then it just becomes sort of a really cool back and forth in terms of how is Elizabeth Scott going to handle this situation? You know, is she going to try and pair up with Dan Duryea, or is she going to try and trick him? And who else might be involved in this? We don't know. But it's really fun in terms of noir and the turns that the movie takes. And so this is definitely a high recommend for me if you haven't seen it. It has, let's see here. I thought this had a commentary, but no. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Commentary by writer, historian, and film programmer Alan K. Rode. Chance of a Lifetime, The Making of Too Late for Tears, featuring Eddie Muller, Kim Morgan, Julie Kurgo, in this mini-doc behind-the-scenes examination of the film's original production. Tiger Hunt, Restoring Too Late for Tears. So a nice little special edition from Flicker Alley. Too Late for Tears, 1949. Next up we have The Glass Key. So nice, I bought it twice. So this is the most recent version of it. This is the Region A version if you're in the States. And then, of course, this Aero Academy version is a Region B lock disc. And I can just briefly touch on the features. But the basic gist of this one, it has Brian Donlevy, it has Veronica Lake, it has Alan Ladd. And you might know Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake from a little movie called This Gun for Hire, which is another one you could watch during Noirvember. I have that on Blu-ray somewhere over there. But this one I really like a lot. It is based on Dashiell Hammett. And if you watch a little movie called Miller's Crossing, you're going to see some very similar scenarios. This is basically Miller's Crossing before Miller's Crossing. So you have Alan Ladd playing the Gabriel Byrne role, and Brian Donlevy is kind of the Albert Finney-ish boss. And then there's multiple bosses and, you know, a woman, and it's not identical to Miller's Crossing, but I know that they talked about, the Coens that is, talked about Dashiell Hammett being a big influence on that movie. I thought they talked about Red Harvest as one of his books that was a big influence on that, but I would say this might be as well. Maybe they've acknowledged it, maybe they haven't, but I do love the way it plays out. I do love short, tough guy Alan Ladd and how he plays off of Veronica Lake. They're just really good. You know, there's a reason people know This Gun for Hire. Their chemistry is fantastic. So this one doesn't have much. It has a new audio commentary, again, by Alan K. Rhodey and Steve Mitchell. That's the Shout Factory Select version. And then the Arrow Academy version has an audio commentary by crime fiction and film expert Barry Forshaw and a new visual essay by Alistair Phillips, co-author of 100 Film Noirs, and then a rare 1946 half-hour radio dramatization of The Glass Key starring Alan Ladd, Marjorie Reynolds, and Ward Bond. So that's fun. Either one of these is worth a pickup. Next up, this is kind of a classic, but I always have to talk about it, Gun Crazy. This is, if I was going to, and I may still do a Warner Archive Blu-ray favorites video, this would have been in my list because I adore this film. Really great story about a woman sharpshooter played by Peggy Cummins, and a guy fresh out of the Army that has had a troubled past as a kid, and he's played by Russ Tamblyn as a kid in the opening scene of this movie where you see him stealing a gun. He meets her in one of my favorite meet cute scenarios ever, which is like she's a sharpshooter at a carnival. She comes out dressed like Annie Oakley in full Western garb, and he is there with his buddy, and he is just immediately smitten with her, and she's an incredible shot, and she ends up volunteering, sort of picking him out of the crowd, to come up and volunteer to shoot with her, and they have this great back and forth with the shooting because he's actually a really good shot, and eventually things kind of go a certain way and they end up in a Bonnie and Clyde situation, and they're on the run, they're robbing banks and other things, and it's just got that great fatalism that you want in your film noir, you know, and it's just fantastic. I just adore this film so much, and was so excited when Warner Archive put this out on Blu-ray because they always do great transfers, and this one looks great on Blu-ray. It has the commentary from author film noir specialist Glenn Erickson that was ported over from the DVD, and also a documentary, Film Noir Bringing Darkness to Light. So that's like a whole, I think, feature-length doc about film noir that you can watch that's on this. So definitely worth your time. Gun Crazy. Nightfall. Another Arrow Academy disc. This one also Region B locked. And this is a Jacques Tourneur film. We know him from his work with Val Lewton and Curse/Night of the Demon, which I've talked about on the channel before. And this is just one of his great noirs. It's basically, it ends up being somewhat of a love story between Aldo Ray and Anne Bancroft, who of course would go on to marry Mel Brooks, but of course is from The Graduate. That's where a lot of people will remember her. And it's based on based on a novel by crime fiction author David Goodis, who is a really good author. You should check out his work. They mentioned Dark Passage is another film that is based on him, but I know there's some other good stuff. Of course, I'm blanking on him right now, but it's basically, the idea is that Aldo Ray was involved sort of in a robbery and is trying to hide out, and ends up sort of stumbling into a, relationship affair with Anne Bancroft, and a cop follows him, and there's bad guys played by Brian Keith that are looking for some money. And I'm not going to give away too much more, but it has a cool snowbound finish. And I was really excited that this came out on Blu-ray from Arrow Academy. It was on DVD in a Columbia Noir collection, I think. And that was even within the last 10, 15 years, probably less than that. And that hadn't been available for a long time. So I was really excited. This got a nice Blu-ray. I picked this up during an Arrow sale. I have not cracked it open yet, as you can see. But I look forward to watching it maybe this month. And it has a new audio commentary from critic Brian Reisman, White and Black, a new video appreciation of Nightfall by film historian Philip Kemp. Do I Look Like a Married Man? A new video essay on the themes of Nightfall by author and critic Kat Ellinger. Always love the Kat Ellinger content. So that I can't wait to check out too. But that is Nightfall. Then we have another Warner Archive, Murder My Sweet. This is a Philip Marlowe story. It's not, it's not Elliot Gould. It's not Humphrey Bogart, and it's not Robert Mitchum, all of which who I believe have played Philip Marlowe. This is Dick Powell playing Philip Marlowe, and it's just a great noir story. I mean, it starts basically with Philip Marlowe at a police station. He's been arrested. There's been a murder. He's a suspect, and he starts recounting to the cops what happened. So you have a perfect setup for some lovely film detective narration as he goes back through what happened. And it's quite the labyrinthine story. I mean, it involves a couple different cases, one of which he's working on for a guy named Moose Matson, who's looking for his old wife, I guess. He's been in jail. He's kind of crazy. He's big. He's mean. He will hurt people. And Philip Marlowe gets involved with him. That's one story. Then there's another story about a guy who has to go and give some money to some people, and that doesn't go well either. And it just kind of, again, turns and twists from there and looks really good on this Blu-ray, and just is, I think it's a little underrated considering how much people know The Big Sleep, or they know The Long Goodbye, or whatever. You know your Philip Marlowe cinema. I just don't think this one gets enough press for it being as good as it is. It has a commentary from film noir specialist Ellen Silver, which is good, and just a really solid one. Highly recommended for sure. Another Warner Archive. This is a Nicholas Ray movie. This is On Dangerous Ground. As you can see, stars Ida Lupino and Robert Ryan. And it is another one that, like Nightfall, features a snowbound conclusion. Basically, you have a big city cop, played by Robert Ryan, who is maybe in need of a vacation? No, he's actually just a really mean dude, and he is known for pushing the bounds of his authority, at least in terms of the way that he treats potential criminals or suspects. He's known to rough them up. He's gotten himself in trouble for doing so, and thus he is put on a case that puts him out of town. There is I believe a killer on the loose, and he's made an escape to a remote, wintry area where he encounters I believe, blind woman played by Ida Lupino, and he's tracking him through the snow, and it's this whole thing. But it's a really solid thriller, and Nicholas Ray is always great. I'm a big fan of him. This one also has a commentary by Glenn Erickson. So we're coming across some Warner Archives that have some extras, and that's not always the case with their discs, unfortunately, but because the transfers are so good, I tend to love what they put out anyway, but these just happen to have some extras. But I like this one a lot. Great Robert Ryan on the edge performance, and great Ida Lupino. Phantom Lady, another Arrow Academy. They actually have, if you haven't looked into the Arrow Academy catalog in terms of noir, they have some really neat stuff over there you might want to look into. Again, this one is actually the Region A version. This one was, it got a stateside release, and I think there's a Region B also. But this one is a cool story about a guy who is basically circumstantially framed for murder, but he has an out in that during the time when he was to have killed, I believe, his wife, he went out and met this woman, at a bar, and the woman was on the outs with her husband, and they shared a moment, they shared a drink, but he cannot find her when it comes time to look for an alibi for killing his wife, because he knows he wasn't there and he wasn't around. And so it becomes a thing where his secretary woman sort of decides to try and help him, because he's basically going to go to the gas chamber or whatever, or the chair, I can't remember, if they can't find this woman, this phantom lady. So the secretary starts to go to the bar where he met the woman, and then finds the woman, or at least she sort of gets on the scent of it, and she has to go through a couple more underworld folks, Elisha Cook Jr. being one of them, and he's great in this. But it's definitely one of those movies that has some great classic noir vibes to it, and just a fun mystery story as to like what happened to this woman, why did she disappear, and what's the story. Will they be able to find her before it's time for him to be executed? I don't know. There's a lot of fatalism in noir, so you never know what's going to happen, but I like this one a lot. Also, I think underrated a bit. Let's see. Has something called Dark and Deadly, 50 Years of Film Noir, an insightful archival documentary featuring contributions from Robert Wise, Edward Dmytryk, Dennis Hopper, and more. That was cool. I like that. A rare hour-long 1944 radio dramatization of Phantom Lady by the Lux Radio Theater, starring Alan Curtis, Ella Raines. Those are always fun, too, to put them on, doing the dishes or something like that. But that's a good one. And then I got some classics here. I'll just run through these real quick, and then I've got some like other stuff that's also good. More Warner Archive. They've got a lot of this that I like. I'm wearing the Mitchum shirt. I don't have an Out of the Past shirt, although I should have one, because this is one of my favorite movies, let alone film noirs. Great stuff with Robert Mitchum. Great fatalism. You know, the novel that this is based on. This is Jacques Tourneur again, by the way, connecting back to Nightfall. The novel this is based on, I believe, is called Build My Gallows High, if I recall. But that really sets the tone for this movie. Just a guy who has sort of gotten out of the criminal life and gets pulled back in via a woman. And it's just a great, Mitchum down on his luck kind of performance, with a great sort of femme fatale-ish type with Jane Greer, and then Kirk Douglas, really energetic villain performance. I like him a lot in this. Good stuff. This also has a commentary by film noir specialist James Orsini, which I remember liking also. And a beautiful transfer. Like, this just looks so damn good. I was really, really impressed with this one. Next up, another classic, Laura. Gene Tierney, Dana Andrews, Otto Preminger, basically a detective, I think. Yeah, it's a mystery about a woman who may be dead, maybe not. Sort of, it's a question of what happened to her and who was involved, and has a great performance by, again, both of them. Clifton Webb is very good in this. I'm not going to go too deep on this. Vincent Price is in this, and he's fantastic as sort of the heel, Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly the villain, but he's very good in it. And again, this is another Blu-ray that looks great. This is a Fox Blu-ray. I think this is still in print. Don't quote me. But yeah, I mean, it's just an absolute classic, and one that I think was one of the early ones. That and Out of the Past were a couple of the early noirs that got me into the genre in general. So, yeah, this is a beaut. Real good stuff. Back to Robert Ryan, we have Robert Wise's The Setup. This is another sort of classic type of boxing movie about a guy who's down on his luck. Again, Robert Ryan's character, he loses so much that his manager, who's a scumbag, starts throwing fights without even telling him. Like, basically, he just counts on the fact that Robert Ryan is such a loser that he's going to, throw the fight or lose the fight, and the manager can make all the money as opposed to giving half to Robert Ryan, who probably wouldn't want to throw the fight anyway. But in this particular case, Robert Ryan decides, I'm not going to lose this fight. And when his manager's already made the deal for the fight to be thrown with some higher up mobster dudes, and you decide not to throw the fight, that could be bad. And it is. And so it kind of goes from there, a matter of like, will he actually lose the fight? Maybe, maybe not. And what will happen if he doesn't? This also has Audrey Totter, who I love. She's in a movie called Tension, which I don't have a Blu-ray of at this time, I don't think. I have a DVD of that. That's also a really good one, by the way. But just a really, like a real-time kind of noir. I think Scorsese showed this to the cast of one of his films. I want to say The Departed, maybe? I know Scorsese's a big fan of this. In fact, the commentary on here is from the DVD. It is with Scorsese and Robert Wise. And it's great. I mean, as you would expect. This is before Robert Wise passed away. So that's a really good track. But this is just, it's a really tight, thriller. It's 72 minutes. So this one just clicks right along. If you haven't seen it, also just great stuff. Wow, I forgot how much Warner Archive I had in here. So right now, we've got a couple noir westerns. Returning to Mr. Mitchum and Mr. Robert Wise. This one came out from Warner Archive, I think, last year, and it jumped from my knowledge, I don't think there was a DVD of it. There might have been a Warner Archive DVD, but I don't think so. I can't remember now, darn it. But this one was forever stuck on VHS limbo, and it's called Blood on the Moon, and it is with Mitchum and Barbara Bel Geddes, who you might remember from, I think she's in Vertigo. And Robert Preston is really good in this. Basically, it's like Mitchum's kind of a hired gun, like cowpoke, and he gets brought into this town and pulled into the middle of a land war. And his buddy is Robert Preston, and I'll leave it to you to find out which side, the good or the bad, he's pulled into at first, and what he decides to do about it once he figures out what's going on in the greater scheme of this land war that's happening. And it has some really great stuff in it, including this really fantastic bar fight where one of the characters knocks the light out, and it's just like a Western bar, smaller Western bar, and they fight in almost total darkness. And it's just really good. Like, it's just a really solid, noir Western, and I love it. No features on that one, but I was just glad to get that on Blu-ray, and it looks nice. And then we got another Mitchum noir Western, Pursued. Who directed this one? Raoul Walsh, of course, yes. Yeah, this one is great. It's got an interesting, I like to call them boomerang narratives, but it's not exactly that, where it starts and comes back around. But it's like, there's sort of a mysterious nature to Mitchum's character. Let's see here. It says, considered Hollywood's first Western noir, Pursued, written by Niven Bush, who wrote Duel in the Sun. Co-stars Robert Mitchum as Jeb, a man emotionally scarred by his tragic past and inner demons. Judith Anderson plays Mrs. Callum, a widow who rescues Jeb when he was a child and raises him as her own with her two biological children. Making Jeb's life even more complicated is the fact that he and his adopted sister, Thorley, Teresa Wright, from Shadow of a Doubt, fall in love with each other, while his adopted brother, Adam, has come to hate him. Dean Jagger plays Grant, a one-armed stranger who seems to bent on tormenting Jeb, and Alan Hale plays Jake Dingle, a casino owner who's become Jeb's businessman partner. Alan Hale's really good in this movie. We're talking about the skipper's dad, Alan Hale Jr.'s father, who, of course, worked with Errol Flynn in a ton of movies and looks a lot like Alan Hale Jr. But I really like Alan Hale in this. Like, he's just a really good guy where you're like, I don't know if I trust you or not, dude. And so just, I don't know. I like the mysterious stranger enters town. We have a guy with a mysterious past. We need to figure all that out. and it's just really wonderful noir. Another that Scorsese is a big fan of, so much so that he does the introduction on this Blu-ray. And I love his introduction. It's very short, but this was part of a series of VHS tapes I think I mentioned on the channel before, where Scorsese did introductions, and they're just all great. So this is from Olive Films, and definitely worth getting if you're looking for a little outside-the-box noir programming for Noirvember. Got a few more things here, some ClassicFlix stuff. We'll start with TMen. This is part of a couple collaborations, more than a couple, but two of the most known collaborations between cinematographer John Alton and director Anthony Mann, who, of course, I know more from his westerns with James Stewart, his sort of dark, almost noirish westerns. Baroque, I've heard them called. But this is really good stuff, because it's a lot of times these have been restored. This is from ClassicFlix, who I don't buy a ton of stuff from them, but these were particularly enticing because they were listed as restorations, I believe. And John Alton is just a great cinematographer. You want to talk about a guy who really sort of sets the idea of what noir is, as an example in the way that he shoots these films. You have canted angles, you have shadows, you have all that you expect from film noir, and it's really wonderful looking, especially on this Blu-ray. This one's about a treasury agent played by Dennis O'Keefe. I think he has to go undercover, and it gets really dicey because maybe his cover gets blown, maybe there's some inside I think it's a counterfeiting organization, because he's a treasury agent. They're trying to catch some counterfeiters. But it's always a tense thing when you're like, does anybody suspect him as a cop? Oh, that could be bad. But it's well played, and I don't know Dennis O'Keefe as well. Like, I know him from a few other movies, but the ones I think I mostly remember him for are this and the next one I'm going to talk about. This has some nice features. Audio commentary, again, by Alan K. Rode. Into the Darkness, Mann, Alton, and TMen. Featurette with cinematographer Richard Crudo, film critic and author Todd McCarthy, writer and film historian Julie Kirgo, and film historian and director Courtney Joyner, and biographer and producer Alan K. Rode again. And then a director's daughter, Nina Mann, remembers her father. So you get a glimpse of Anthony Mann's daughter in there. But I remember that Into the Darkness featurette talking about Mann and Alton working together was just fascinating. You've got a really great group of people talking about it there. And as I said, there's another one with Dennis O'Keefe. It's called Raw Deal. Also, Alton shot and Anthony Mann directed. You usually hear about these two in the same breath, because they both have that really sort of expressionistic, film noir, black and white look. This one has Claire Trevor, and Dennis O'Keefe plays a guy who's been imprisoned, and his girl helps him break out of jail, and then it's sort of like him on the run, and things always get complicated, But yeah, another one that has a bunch of great features. Feature-length audio commentary by film historian Jeremy Arnold. Deadly is the Male, The Making of Raw Deal. Featurette with film historian Julie Kirgo, film historian and director Courtney Joyner, and biographer and producer Alan K. Rode. Something called Dennis O'Keefe, An Extraordinary Ordinary Guy. A featurette with Jim O'Keefe, son of Dennis O'Keefe, and biographer and producer Alan K. Rode, and film historian Courtney Joyner, talking about him as an actor. But these are just both really fun examples of the genre. Just a couple more here. This one came out also around that time. He Walked by Night with Richard Basehart. It says, when a Los Angeles police officer is savagely gunned down, a citywide manhunt ensues for its cunning and ruthless killer, but finding the murderer, chillingly played by Richard Basehart in only his third film, proves difficult for Detective Marty Brennan, Scott Brady, and his colleagues, as Basehart's Roy Morgan is always one step ahead of the law. Will modern police methods and sheer determination be enough to find the elusive cop killer before he strikes again? I don't know. But this is a good one, and Richard Basehart is really good in this. It's a very dark role, but again, sort of that classic noir territory, you know, in terms of the way it looks and the characters and the fatalism, all the stuff you want. No, let's see here. Audio commentary by Alan K. Rhodey again, and Julie Kurgo. Great. Below the Surface, You Walk by Night, a featurette with cinematographer Richard Crudo, film critic and author Todd McCarthy, writer and film historian Julie Kurgo, film historian and director Courtney Joyner, and biographer Alan K. Rhodey, the same group. And they're really good. All of them together really do a wonderful job giving you some context for these noirs. So those are good. And then I've talked about this one already, but I wanted to bring it back. It's out of print, unfortunately, but I just love this movie. This is Joseph Losey. Let's see. I mean, it's just a creepy movie, you know? It's just like cops, creepy dude on the loose, you know, seduction. And again, I'm not going to go into details, but if you can find a copy of this, go in knowing as little as possible and you won't be disappointed. I've always been a fan of this one. It's dark and more perverse than most of the noirs I'm used to seeing. But I think this one might be out of print and a little expensive, so I didn't want to talk about it up top. But anyway, that will do it for my Noirvember recommendations. Hopefully there's something in here for you. Let me know in the comments below, what are you watching for Noirvember? If you have some recommendations for me or just, you know, general favorites, I'd love to hear about them. And thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.